Welcome, supers, back to another Shark Tank Tank Tales. I am so hyped up about the person that is sitting to my left, depending how you're watching this. Maybe you're watching it mirrored. I don't know. Maybe this says Rupert instead of Super. Anyway, this episode, we have a special entrepreneur who got to have a very special thing in the tank happen to her, which I have a lot of things to break down and ask about that. The So wherever you are right now, I need some super claps. So, you're riding the bus, you're walking, you're sitting in your office, you're sitting in the in the bathroom, whatever you're doing. I need some super claps for Super Meghan Wolfgram. Woo! Welcome, Megan. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much. What an introduction. I'm doing awesome. I am a lot more excited than Piper. Here, I'll show you real quick. There's my girl Piper, and that's the real Piper, and over there is the cardboard cutout. But I'm just so excited to be here with you. Thank you.
I'm excited to have you here for multiple reasons. So all right, before we get into all the awesomeness that happened, because I literally just did the reaction video last night for your pitch, which was a lot of fun to watch. I'm glad that I took the time to do it and I didn't shortcut the process and be like, oh, let me just watch it and then I'll react to it later, because I like to get my first or somewhat first opinion. I might have watched the pitch and years ago at this point, and then doing it again. So anyway, what oh man, there's so many things to say. So let's talk about your relationship with Shark Tank first, right? What did you like Shark Tank before? Did you watch it all the time religiously, a little bit? Did you even know what it was? Because we've had
Yeah.
people here that didn't even really know what Shark Tank was prior to getting to be on the show.
Yeah, I mean, I love the show. So, the networks might not be super happy with me, but I don't actually have cable television at my house. I think that's really common now, though. Like, I've got Netflix
I
and I've
don't.
got, yeah, exactly. But I don't have. So when I'm watching a show like Shark Tank, honestly, I'm watching it either through Hulu or I'm watching it when it goes into reruns. So I actually am not super current with the show. Of course, now I am. But I'm a fan of the show, and what's really crazy is I got down the rabbit hole. This is before I even applied to the show, so I went down the rabbit hole and I was watching like Dragon's Den and Shark Tank Australia. So I've probably seen, honestly, maybe even more of those versions of the episodes than even the US version. But yeah, I think the show is pretty awesome.
That is an interesting way. I mean, nobody has really talked at least that I can recall on this show about watching those versions of the show. I've had people um, request me to watch those versions of the shows
Okay.
and react to them, but I think I've only done like one or two Australian episodes,
Okay.
pitches. But one of them was for the Mupp, which was a joke, which I didn't know was a joke at the time.
Oh no! So
So
you reacted
yeah,
to it like it was real.
yeah, me and Larry Roberts were because it was suggested to us. So it's like, oh, okay, let's watch it together and we'll react to it. And it's like this has to be a joke. But I
Yeah.
mean, I guess it was a joke, but it's still a pretty good idea. I don't know. Better than Jimmy Kimmel's
Oh,
horse for
horse
or pants is
pants?
for horse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw horse pants, yeah, who didn't?
So you applied for the show. Was this your first time applying to the show, or had you applied like multiple years?
No, this was the first time, and I actually so we got reached out to by a producer, and it's funny that you say, like, "Did you know about the show?" So my customer success manager is also my aunt, all right? We keep it small and in the family here. And so she, like, sent me this ticket. She's like, "Hey, like, I don't even know what this is about, but they're asking about something. I'm applying for something." And it was Shark Tank, so she wasn't really aware of Shark Tank. So it was like an email form from our website. And so I saw it and I was like, interesting. So I gave the person a call, and we kind of went from there. But yeah, so she wasn't aware. So she wasn't like Shark Tank. No, she was like, what is this random thing? Is it spam? Should I delete it? So we were reached out to in early August, and then we were taping by the end of September. So it was a whirlwind, an
Wow.
absolute whirlwind of a like what 6 week period of time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, usually does not happen that quickly or that soon. From the time you apply to the time that you go through all the hoops and sign all the papers and everything, and then have time to like work on your pitch and then
Mm-hmm.
like guesstimate like because like yeah from August to September and then from which is what one like a month or 6 weeks you said
Yeah, so
total.
so it was like very beginning of August, or maybe that first email had come in at the very end of the previous month. But by the time I actually applied, it was early August. And then of course, I mean, you go, whether or not you get reached out to or you apply, you go through the same process. So there's really kind of no shortcut. It's not like they say, "Hey, we want you," and then you're taping. Like you still have to go through the whole, giant application and all of it. And we taped. So I actually taped the very last day of taping for the whole season, 13. So it was
Wow.
like right in the nick of time.
Wow, that yeah, no, definitely seems that way, and then to well, what's it, April? So it's been a little while since you've taped, obviously. So September to now is what 4 plus, really 4, so 8 months later. So that's I
Yeah.
mean that's a long time to be waiting, and hopeful that your episode would air or your pitch would air at all, right? Because that's
Yep.
still a thing.
Yeah, there's no
Um,
promise, and I was getting more and more terrified because I was watching the season, and I started to see people who pitched the day that I had pitched, and I was like, how many more? Because you're aware of some of the other people who are there with
mhm.
you the day you're taping, and I saw some of them actually go into episodes, and I was like, oh, they're using them, and they're using them, and like, what? Wait a minute. So I was getting nervous there. I was definitely sweating it out.
I would be too. That would be something I'd be picking up on and noticing. And that actually brings me to a great question because I obviously they film. I mean, I've heard like 8 to 9 a day. Some maybe even more. They go quick. Depending on how quick it goes. And
Mhm.
as we found out with the story, oh, what's her name? That was hiking just 2 hours prior. Like it's it's a fluid process because of the
Yes.
the access to the people that they have to be on Shark Tank. But one thing that's always stood out to me is the wardrobe and syncing up because like I guess it hasn't occurred to me whether or not everyone's wearing the same wardrobe within the same episode. And I guess I mean if you have that kind of money and team, you could coordinate that like ahead of time, but you don't always know what's gonna air, and they're not always wearing the same thing. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
weird.
I wondered that myself, and it seems like they probably have. My personal theory is that they probably have like segments. So it's like, okay, today we're wearing this, we're shooting this, because they do keep it consistent. You don't see an episode with like different sharks. It's if you're watching one episode
Yes.
of the show, it's the same panel, right? Because they want it start to finish to be that realistic viewpoint. And I haven't noticed like wardrobe change or anything like that. So they rock it. They do a great job producing that thing.
Yeah, well, they do, and the editors and the producers that they have are like world class, taking 45-minute plus to an hour and a half or more, and boiling it down to an 8-minute segment is it's hard to do, right?
Yes.
And so huge props to them. So okay, so you find out that you're going to do this. How panicked were you when you're like, oh, I got to put a pitch together, I got to figure out how much the value is, I got to do all that, and I got to manage my business because like you tell it in the pitch like, hey, we still have people. It's not like you
Yeah.
let everybody go and then you just kind of like it's just you and maybe like your aunt in this case, making it work. So
Right.
um how did you navigate that time crunch?
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty intense. And in that period of time, I think one thing that was a benefit for me is I had been selected to pitch at what's called the Florida Venture Forum. So I'm based in Florida. We're on the east coast of Florida. So I was already preparing a pitch deck and questions and valuation and all of that stuff. And I actually went and did that in October. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was like August, September, October, boom, boom, boom. So I was already sort of in the process of wrapping my head around those types of things. So when Shark Tank opportunity came along, I'm kind of glad that it wasn't a longer process. People have always said, "Oh, you should apply to the show." And I've thought about it, like I've dreamed about it, and then I've always been like, my baby's not ready. Like I don't it's such a gamble, and it's so terrifying because like what if they hate your baby? What if and you see people walk in there where you're like, I can see that this person lives and breathes this, and they get like laughed out of the room. So for me it was like that I'm not worth it, and that like it's not ready yet. That those types of fears and feelings. So I needed the push. Them reaching out was the push I needed. And then once I was like, this could be a real thing, I only had a couple of weeks to panic about it, which was awesome because I am a worrier. And I did not get like months. I mean, some people go through the process and it's like almost a year end to end. And I'm really grateful. And then like the day that I taped, I was the first one in the tank. Talk about a relief of anxiety. So I knew that I was walking in there first thing. And otherwise, there's an order of go, but people might be in there for 30 minutes, they might be in there for a couple hours, and that would have driven me wild having to sit around like waiting.
Yeah, plus knowing that the sharks might be aggravated by the time by the
Yeah,
time you're
like
getting
who's
to them.
who's just pissed them off because I don't want to go after that guy.
100%, 100%. So, all right, so and I guess going to back to October, how tricky was that to know stuff that you couldn't probably divulge? I'm sure I would imagine you couldn't divulge, at least not
Oh,
publicly during the
absolutely.
pitch.
Yeah, no. So again, kind of a blessing in disguise that I was already going through that. So it was like, okay, yes, I had two big things that I was trying to prepare for at the same time. But I was already preparing my pitch deck and my pitch for the Florida Venture Forum opportunity. And so I just stuck with that. And of course, I had taped for the show. But, just because you do or don't make a deal on the show doesn't mean that you're going to close. You have to go through due diligence, all of that stuff. So none of that was really going down the road at that point for me. So it was really easy for me to just say, like, okay, maybe that's happened, but that's a real pipeline thing for SwiftPaws, for the company. So even though I can't disclose it for a bunch of reasons, I also kind of can't disclose it because it's not a real thing yet. So I had taped. I kind of knew the outcome, but I was still working through that whole process. So October, when I went and I did that other pitch, it was so fresh afterwards that I just walked in there, did the pitch, didn't even cross my mind that like this other thing is an influence. And I wasn't another nice thing was that I wasn't raising at the time. So of course that would have been challenging, maybe talking to prospective investors or all of that can get really tricky. Like, oh, I've got this thing that I can't talk about. So because I wasn't actively fundraising, it was a lot easier for me to just pitch and just avoid that and keep the secret.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, that I would imagine so, right? Um, because yeah, as you said, there's still due diligence. There's still like contract signing. Have you signed your contract, by the way?
We closed our deal. So it did
Woo!
take a long time. Yeah, woohoo! I am so excited about it. So we closed our deal, but it did take a long time. There's a thorough due diligence process. And if I was a shark, I'd be the same way. You have to dig into every detail of the business, and that took a long time. And so by the time I inked that paper, I was like the happiest person in the world.
I can imagine. I can imagine. So, all right. So, preparing for the tank. Now you reached out to me and said, before you aired, how soon did you find out? Because I know you only get like, is it 2 or 3 weeks prior to airing, you get to
It
find out that
differs.
it's going.
Yeah, it differs. I've heard as short as like a week, but I got 3 weeks notice.
Wow. And then what? So it was like 2 weeks before you aired. You reached, or maybe it was 3 weeks. I don't quite recall. You reached out to me. I was like, "Oh, Joe, I want to come on for an interview." And I'm like, I didn't even have to reach out to you.
You were one of the first resources. So when I found out that I was going to probably be flying out there to tape for the show, so through that application process, I did a couple things. I got a Hulu subscription and I binge watched the whole of the previous season. I really wanted to brush up, and I knew that like what I had been watching was older stuff. And then I watched a ton of your, I mean a ton of your videos. Probably not even proud about how much time I spent on YouTube, like late at night after I had been in the office all day, just like trying to learn as much as I could. And so, yeah, you're like one of the first people I reached out to. I was like, I want to go and interview with this guy because he helped me prepare. He doesn't know it, but he helped me prepare.
So you're the second person that's told that's happened with so far that like they watch the channel in order to help prepare themselves for going on the show, and which is I don't want to spoil it because I haven't put your reaction video out yet. It'll probably maybe certain copyright bots would get off my back. It would be ready to go later today. I'll probably post it. But let's get into the tank first though, and we'll go from there. But yeah, I just, it's an honor to get to teach and learn too, right? Because like I make mistakes, and obviously if you watch enough of my videos, you know that I've made some dumb mistakes in these videos because they are raw, they are genuine. I'm not editing it. I'm not like, oh, let's pause the video, go do a quick Google search, and like sometimes I get the valuation wrong. I mean, you went in with 240,000 for 6%, which
yes.
I because of the time crunch in which I had I told you before, I had to go coach a soccer game right after I did the video, so I didn't have time to like pause the video and go do the math on like what 240,000, but I have an idea, had an idea. It's a lot. It's still a lot, right?
It is. And my accountant was pissed at me, by the way. He was like, can you please make that a round number?
So I'll make it a round number, 6.6% for 240.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's yeah. So anyway, the coming in for that valuation, which I honestly still haven't done the math on. What's the total valuation?
It's a $4 million valuation.
It's 4 million. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's only 4 million.
It is. It's
yeah. All right.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I guess because it'd be 500,000 for 10, like, or ish for 10, at least get you in the ballpark. So I've been trying to get better at the estimate, but I'll tell you, I've been since I was on vacation the last week, which is why we weren't able to do our interviews a little sooner. And I've been in such a haze since I've gotten back. It's because I went to Disney World, and it's so exhausting. Like 10 days, like we even took a break in the middle. We drove both ways, which I think coming back we had a much worse time driving back. But it's not that it's the end of the world, but with just bad time. So I've been this haze ever since. So like doing math or like long form concentration things have just been really, really a struggle for me. Which is why I didn't record your video, which I was planning to, in the car on the way back. It was because I actually had I did the preview video with yours.
Yes.
In it, but I didn't do the reaction video, and I was planning on doing it the same way, where like I mounted my it's actually my cell phone camera as a webcam and utilized that because it was stable enough to be in the car and like have the headset. But I ultimately ended up just editing 3 review videos that we have.
Still productive though.
Oh yeah. But I was just, my brain was I was fried at that point, so it just wasn't going to work for me. So I could edit video. I could do that in my sleep at this point, but recording and not being able to like write the notes and do the things while we're driving it was going to be tricky. So anyway,
having to decompress after a vacation is a legitimate thing.
It is. I mean, it's not like we sat on the beach and sipped our drinks and that was the extent. The hardest thing was picking the place to go to dinner. Like it was, Disney's it's tough. It's exhausting. Even at a leisurely pace can be exhausting.
Yes.
So okay, so you go in 240 for 6%. Which did you feel that was? Did you have? I guess my question is, did you go in with the room to negotiate? Because like that would be my thought that you did. based
Yeah,
on
this
that.
is something that I actually picked up from you. Two things, and I've seen you
Oh.
say this a number of times. No, I'm serious. I'm dead serious. You don't want to go in asking for too little equity because,
Hmm.
you'll hear them say, "I don't get out of bed for 1%." And you've just sort of killed yourself right there. And the other thing, and I see this more often, and I've seen you do this a couple times where it's like you go in asking for too much money. And you hear the sharks say, they're like, "I wish you had come in asking for less. Like, I want to help you. I want to be a part of this, but gosh, you're asking for a 500,000 or asking for," and you don't know the other deals. And think about it this way: when they're taping, you don't know the other deals they've made that day. You don't know the other deals they've made during that string. Like, I mean, look, to a degree, they're probably insensitive a little bit. But if you go in asking for a huge chunk of money and there's not a really good reason why, you could work yourself out of getting a deal just by the fact that they're like, "Oh, I just can't I can't commit to writing that big of a check for this." And I've seen that so many times, and I've seen you like, man, like that should have been there. They should have come in asking for less and then tried to work around that. So yeah, so those two things, I wanted to ask for evaluation that gave them a shark discount because I know that I've seen them. You walk in asking for, whatever, 100,000 for 10%, and they say, "I want 20%," right? They usually just double. It's over and over and over again. They just double what you're asking for. And so I didn't want to go quite double, but I had it in the back of my head where I had been at. And I had raised a seed round, and I didn't necessarily want, and that seed round had been the year prior. So, I mean, these were people who came in to SwiftPaws during, like, as COVID was starting. We had been out of stock for a year. Like, those investors that was the wind under my sails, and we had come a long way from that. So I didn't want to undercut them. So for me going in, and that, by the way, that round was at a 2.5 million valuation. So I really wanted to give myself negotiating room without edging up too close to, now I'm, really undercutting my earliest and most supportive investors. So that was my strategy. I wanted to go in offering more than 5% of the company because I thought that they would take me more seriously and see that. Because a big thing on the show too is that they say, like, "Are you just here for the exposure?" And good Lord, I was not. Like, I wanted to bag a shark and take them home with me. And so I wanted them to see that. I wanted them to see that I was there to get one of them on board. And so I just, when all the math worked out, 4 million valuation ended up making sense. It was 2.5 multiple of our lifetime revenue. And it was effectively, when the year worked out, it was a little bit less than a 4x of our annual. So for that year. And so I felt like that was fair. And I mean, obviously it worked out for me, but that was my strategy going in.
Yeah, yeah. I no, and that's a great strategy to have because, like, when you said, I own if everything converted today, it'd be six. I own 63%, which is not terrible, but not great either in the grand
Right.
scheme of things. Especially when you start talking to a shark that's like, "Well, I could do this, but I need 20%." Like, great, hooray! Hopefully it all works out, because if it doesn't, like, I'm not gonna own much of the company at that point, and probably need to raise more money, and and go from there. So yeah, so I think I think the strategy paid off, and again, I mean, I hammer it more often than not about the money.
Yeah.
Don't go in at, if you're going for $500,000, like, that's a lot, and you're not asking to give up, a large chunk of it.
Mhm.
I would have. I'm glad that nobody saw and was like, "Oh, I'll do this for 240 for 20% or something like that," because yeah, that just would not. I mean, look, I always err on the side of, you still gotta do due diligence, and you still gotta, like, anything could happen. I've
Yeah.
seen the structures change on deals after the fact.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't say who or what or where, but
Sure.
you're, at least you're at that point, you're connected to a shark. So I think it's always best to go in, like, trying to get a deal, because things can change, things can fall through, and worst case scenario, at least America saw that you walked out with a deal, right?
Yes.
Like with worst case, I mean, it's still better to be on the show than not being on the show, and better that and all that. But at least then, the perception of like you got a deal is there for majority of the people who aren't digging deep into, a year later, 2 years later, and whether or not it worked out.
Yeah.
So, how were you feeling when you were walking down the hallway? Like, were you pumped? Were you nervous? I mean, obviously you had your dog with you, so.
Yeah. I was so ready, and the only thing I was trying not to do was have Piper run over the poor cameraman who was, walking backwards. So right before I went on, we got like a 5-minute walkthrough just to, there's no sharks out there. They're just setting up, but we got to go out and just check the set. And for me, I wasn't nervous at all. I probably should have been, but I wasn't nervous at all. Like walking into the tank, I was like, let's do this. Like, I'm so ready to show them what I've done here. But I just had to make sure that it was going to go well, because SwiftPaws is primarily an outdoor activity. And so we, you saw it, the whole thing was like AstroTurf, and I got like a premium AstroTurf to lay down. I wanted to make sure that was solid, that my setup was solid, that the thing turned on and ran. Like, did somebody put a battery in it? Because you don't necessarily get to set up the set yourself. And for me, I'm a very hands-on founder. And for me to have to go out there and like run a course that I didn't set up. So like, I was like, no, I gotta turn this on, make sure it works, make sure the corners are right, everything is solid, because my best friend is going to be out there running her heart out, and I need that to go well. So during that little 5-minute preview, she, of course, sees that it's out there. And so then we're standing there waiting to go into the tank, before the first pair of doors open. And as soon as those doors open, she like lunges. Like, she is ready to go. That's her SwiftPaws is her favorite thing in the world. So I am trying to like not choke my dog, right? Like, I'm trying to like hold her back. She is just trying to run down that hallway. And I'm like, please don't run over the cameraman. Please don't run over. So then we get out there and they put out like a press photo, and it's like me standing there smiling at the sharks, and then Piper is like looking straight down at the machine. So yeah, that's the only thing going through my head walking down that hallway. It was like, please don't run over this cameraman.
So I'm gonna have to watch this, because because of the time constraints I was under, I just went straight to like, where can I start this video and go from there. So I will have to. I wonder if I can pull. While I get you talking about the next thing, I'll try to pull it up here.
You'll see it now that I've told you. You can't unsee it.
So okay, so that is an interesting take on being nervous walking down, and on top of the burden and weight of the gravity of the situation that you're walking into, worrying about whether or not this camera guy is going to get knocked over, or you're going to get pulled, yanked down, or anything like that. And look, that's a very heads up move to want to make sure that it works, because we all know once the cameras are on, it's on, and like whatever happens is going to happen, and we don't want that to see. Now, when you were out there, you gave all the sharks I guess they already had them, the remotes in front of them. So is that like a feature? You can have multiple remotes paired to the device, or is that like some TV magic?
Not even close. That's what do they say? It's a feature, not a bug. So
so
I mean, look, it's extremely unlikely that somebody's going to have more than one of our unit or more than one controller. I mean, usually you have one and you run it in your own backyard. So they're not like keyed or paired or anything. So like every remote is universal. Yeah. So like every remote can run every unit. And so, my thought is that, the sharks are very savvy people, and they are probably very good at listening. So I was like, I'll give them each remote, and then I'll tell them that to only use it one at a time. That totally didn't work out. They were like kids in a candy store fighting over. So only one remote will actively take control at a time. So they were fighting over whose remote was going to have control. That was hilarious. Like, I think I asked Damon if he wanted to try it, so he did, and then at one point, then like he started, and then somebody else wanted to try it, and then it just went haywire with them all fighting.
So that yeah, they definitely I was trying to find the video here.
Oh, okay.
So
No, they just
so
they just went crazy fighting over. So then like yeah, so then Robert's remote got control for a while, then Lori wanted to have control, and then like at one point like Mark had control, but I don't think he knew he had control. And then finally so finally they realized that if they had control and they just like floored it, that they would keep control. And so that's when Kevin, he floored the thing. He's like, I've got the controller. And that's when you see the rest of them. They're like, oh, come on, like let the dog catch it, because that catching the flag is a huge rewarding part of the fun. That's like look, I don't necessarily condone like playing with laser pointers because it can cause things like mental anxiety and certain type of neurotic behavior because there's nothing there. There's no real physical reward. With SwiftPaws and with this type of activity, catching that flag is a huge part of the game. And so finally he's like, I'll stop it now. And then Piper, of course, catches it and it's touchdown. Yeah, it was pandemonium when I had debated. I was like, do I give them live remotes or not? And I was like, no, I should. They can handle it. They did okay, but man, they were.
Well, you give them an opportunity to play with something, and or drink something, try something. They're gonna do it. I mean, that's part of what they signed up for.
Oh,
so
you found the clip.
I
Okay.
did find yeah. So let me. I don't know if let me mute it because there's no reason for the audio to have to go through.
Yeah.
And we'll play it back at like 2x speed just in case. But you can kind of.
Look
Oh
at
yeah. Oh wow. You were really holding.
and they didn't show much of it. Now look at her. Look at
No.
her stare at the
I'll
machine.
go back. So this is at 1x speed.
Yeah,
I mean, you definitely sound like you're holding her back.
and she is like losing traction on the wood floor.
That is, I don't think I noticed that before. The amount of AstroTurf that you actually did put down to make it, to make it work. Did you have the dimensions ahead of time, or did you have to like overbuy and then
No,
whatever?
so that's one thing that I think, the show, the network, the producers, they're all really good. Like they want you to succeed. So I was talking back and forth with them and I was like, okay, if I come on the show, we have to do a live demo, but I can't run on I can't run on that like carpet, that rug that they have. I can't run
Oh
on
yeah.
hardwood floor like this. It has to be safe for the dog. And so we were talking about like, do they have AstroTurf? And ultimately I literally bought premium athletic grade AstroTurf with like shock absorbent cushioning and infill and the whole deal because I wasn't going to run my dog on a surface that wasn't going to be safe. And I think what you see there is like a 30 by 40 space, which is probably the smallest I would ever want to run it with my dog because she's a big and fast dog. If you have like a little Chihuahua, like they could have a great time in that space. But for that, and then you see like they did a brilliant job setting it up. Like they are on it. I said, look, it's important that can't slip. That has to be really secure to the floor. The pulleys and the unit have to be secure. And they did an awesome job of putting it together. You see, they like molded it around the front, and it looked really, really good.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. So they told you what size to buy, and then
they said that this was the max size, and I just kind of like got to fill that, and then they literally like I think they cut it to trim it around that like curve in front of the sharks. Like they went all out. It was awesome.
Looks like it. I don't have like my normal controls here to be able to just go back like a little. Here we go. So is the I guess it was just after this.
Yeah, at some point you see it, like probably when they're showing Piper
there we
around.
go. That's, yeah. So they cut. So they did. Yeah, that looked really good. They did a good ding ding. Great job.
Good job, Shark
Great
Tank.
job, team. Yeah, they did it. They did it. Hopefully this video doesn't get flagged for copyright material. Hopefully, oh god, I hope not. All right, I'll fix it if it's not. But anyway, okay, so a couple of questions about the product itself before we get into what the sharks takes were on it. So how much of a pain in the butt is this to set up? Because when I first saw it, and I think, and you, if you watch, you probably watched the preview video. That was my first thought. Was like, wow, this seems like might be a headache to set up. And can you speak to that? Because
Yeah, absolutely.
it's 4 bases, and you were saying that they needed to be secured. So where you have like usually like stakes to the ground, I guess.
Yep. So the pulleys themselves in the main unit, they have a tether, a paracord tether, and then you can anchor it via the tether. The tether is really important because think about it. You've got this like 1 pound object out there, and if your dog comes in at full speed and runs into it, the tethers allow it to like move out of the way. So it's on this string system. It's like think of it like a glorified clothesline pulley, right? So instead of that pulley being anchored directly to the ground, where it's like a dog could like run into it and stub their toe. So that if they actually come into contact with it, it moves out of the way, and then the tension usually brings it back into position. So we have like little tent stakes that the kit comes with. It is not IKEA level difficult to set up, okay? But it does require some assembly. So if you see out here, like where we're standing is right at the main unit. That's the motorized pulley. The other 3 pulleys out there, which that's what you get with the base kit. You get 3 pulleys in the main unit. So you can make any square or rectangle. Those are wherever you want to corner. So you can decide to go out further, in shorter, wherever you want to turn. You can buy extra pulleys. So when you're planning a course, you get out there, you walk around, you put a pulley where you want to corner, then you run the string around, and those pulleys in the unit, they open up the lid. So you just hook the string behind the pulley and then snap it back shut. And then you get to the end, you tie the 2 ends together, tie your flag on, and you're ready to go. I can set up a course in like 3 to 5 minutes, but like the average person the first time, they're going to take 20 to 30 minutes to fully figure it out, set it up, run it without the dog first, get a good feel for it, then bring your dog out. And then before you know it, you're going to be like your neighborhood's like favorite person, and everybody's going to be begging you to bring their dogs over.
So that was I think on your website it said like, oh, you can tire your dog out in 2 minutes. I was like, yeah, but it's gonna take me like 20 to 30 minutes just to get this together.
The first time, yes, but also, I mean, there's people who don't leave it up and try to mow your lawn, obviously. But there's people who leave like the pulleys and the bases out, and then like the main unit and the controller, they have electronics in them. Please bring them inside. But if it's all set up ready to go, you bring it outside, and you have to charge the battery anyway. So bring it in, charge the battery, bring it out, hook it onto the string, and you're ready to run again. And so people have done that as well. So and my dog, I can't do that with Piper, because if it's set up in my front yard, which is usually where I do it at home, she will not leave the front door until she sees me take it down, put it in the bag, and put it back into the closet where it belongs.
It's incredible how much dogs know, like, are that well, I guess, trained in habit to know things like that.
Yeah.
Little things like that. But no, I mean that's awesome. So I know, so some of the feedback, and it's funny because in the reaction, obviously you haven't watched it because it's not out yet, but I pretty early on talk about like, man, like if you could get this down to like $199 to or $200 to $300, and then literally they're like, well,
I was gonna say you nailed it.
How do we do that? How do we do that? And it's like, but even just looking at your cost at the time, which I'm hopefully is less at this point, is 130, was $135. It's like, okay, so if you get that halved, then you can get to that 200, 250, base range. And then my idea was like, well, could you just do like 2, like one out, and then then your base station, what do you call it, the motor,
the main unit or the motor unit,
the main unit, so like it's just going back and forth.
Yeah, and
I mean, obviously it's not going to be as much fun for the dog because they're just trying to track it,
Well, that straight
way.
line, you don't want to run a dog like at a 180. Think about like the pressure on their joints when they're making the turn. So you want your corners to always be 90 degrees or bigger. However, that straight line is absolutely used because they do the sport that's called fast cat. It's a straight line. They don't run back and forth, but they run from point A to point B, and they clock them, and they convert it to miles per hour, and then they rank them by breed. It's a really exciting sport, and that's an all breed sport. So what people are doing at home is they're setting up exactly like you said, main unit here, one pulley over there, and they're running the dog down and then letting them catch it for practice. And so for us, like, yes, we are already on it. We've been on it since like last year even. you know, that's my, and I wasn't lying when I think I told Robert that 199 is my target price.
Mhm.
100%. There's two big things that we are trying to do right now. One is redesign the pulley. The pulley that we made is a professional grade pulley. We didn't have budget to do molds for two different pulleys. So we already built a professional grade machine and we already built that pulley. So when we did the tooling for that, we just went with the one pulley. Now those pulleys cost us over $10 a piece to make, and there's
Woo!
yeah, and there's 3 to 5 pulleys in every kit. But commercial grade pulleys easily sell for 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, $90 per pulley. Now that's not what ours sell for, but that's the going rate in the industry. So the commercial pulley, we nailed it. It's awesome. It's durable. It's overkill for the home pulley. So we're redesigning the pulley for home use. It doesn't need to be quite that big. It doesn't, there's a number of things. We're not going to compromise on a few things, safety and quality, but I guarantee you that we can get the cost down dramatically for everything for the home backyard version. And the other thing is that control handle, which I adore. It's got the little shape of the dog on it. So
Yes.
that controller has electronics in it. Like, it's not cheap to make that control handle. So we are actually, as a Christmas present, one of my engineering resources sent me the prototype for an app. So it's just a simple app that controls it. So for the base model, you'll have the free app to control it from your phone. And then if you want the handheld controller, you'll be able to add it on. Just those two changes alone, I think I can bring my cogs down to less than $80.
Woo! That
Yeah.
is awesome to hear. Yeah, I think that there's definitely something. I mean, when you look at like what was it, DJI did it with the drones. They like stopped including the controller in the box for a little while there with the low end models, and you could buy the controller.
Hmm.
So it's like, oh, you could control from your phone, like, if you want that, to be able to do it like that. Or you could, get the, pay extra for, the remote, the control, separately, which I think was like
Yeah.
the DJI Spark was the one that you had to buy the remote control, separately for. But look, it's little things like that that you get to a base model that enables people to be able to. Now, I did see when I was looking on your website, you have the pulleys, the prototype pulley.
Oh, the prototype line winder.
Oh, line winder. Oh, okay. Is that what
Okay,
the? All
so
right, I knew it was some
once
kind
you
of
once you get
spoil.
the kit, when you get the kit, you get like a kite, like a kite string winder, very
Hmm.
manual. That's what comes with it. So imagine taking 250 feet of line every day and trying to wind it up by hand. That's a
My
lot.
hands hurt thinking about that.
I've done it thousands of times, literally thousands of times. I've been doing this for 10 years. I've done that thousands of times. And I'm a trooper. I don't mind hard work. And so, like, I kind of thought about it, but I'd never really thought about it. I was like, this is just a part of this activity. And then again, one of my engineering resources, he's in Huntsville, Alabama. Shout out. So Conduction Technologies. So what he did is he was like, he had to do it to test. We were working on like the electronics. He was doing my rebuild of my circuit boards in 2019, 2020. And so, like, early 2020. So he was having to test in his backyard, and he wound it up by hand one time and got to work on a line winder. He was like, no. So then he said, look, like, we need to put this thing out there. So what it does is it snaps. So like when you open the lid to the motorized pulley, it snaps onto the wheel. And then you go into wind mode, which is a slower mode. Then you just hook it on and you use the controller and it winds it up. Like, genius.
That's why, it's so important for the people who make things to use things, right?
Yes.
We see this with Disney has apparently been accused quite a bit with this, where like upper management is not going into the, and probably gonna do a whole video just on Disney and the
Oh, nice.
experience and all
Yeah.
that, like, because that's one of my Zen places because of all the operations and the systems and the processes
Oh,
and the
yeah.
things that become magical.
Yes.
Is it's one of those things for me. So but just, having it be so app based, and then all these developers and all these people, they're not apparently going into the parks and actually using the app that they're creating. they're just going to Universal because that's where they rather go. But I could say the same thing about so we have a Chrysler Pacifica here,
Yeah.
and there's like so many little like bugs and things where it's like it
Mm,
doesn't take a quality assurance person to figure this out. It takes somebody who actually owns the vehicle to know that like after about 8 starts, this you're gonna have to reboot your radio, or you're gonna have to
yeah.
reboot one of the fire sticks that are behind you, because of course you will. They're cheap Amazon fire sticks. I mean, they sell these things for like $15 with a
Right.
processor and everything all in, HDMI certification and all. So it's one of those things where it's like when you pull up to the place where they make the software and they make things, like, do you see any of the car that they're making? It's like one of the reasons like Tesla has no, like as less issues, at least software wise,
Hmm.
because when you pull up there, it's like, what's everybody driving? Tesla. So they know what the problems are because they
Yeah.
are firsthand experiencing them, and they know how to go about fixing them,
They're
right? So
living it.
yeah, exactly. Versus like, well, somebody else is gonna, maybe it works for now, but who knows? Like, maybe after 20, startups, you'll have to like hard reboot it, and which is kind of a pain because you can't see
Yeah.
the screens from the front seat while you're trying to do
Oh
it.
man.
It's one of those things. So, and you're trying to explain it to like a 4-year-old, like, okay, like click here,
Do
here, here,
this.
here, here, 6 clicks in, you can hit the restart, and it's like, all right, well, otherwise I'm sitting there with like my phone, like using it as like a mirror, and the controller, backwards, trying to get it to, I could go on and on about it. But anyway, uh, yeah, shout out to developers and engineers that actually do the things and then realize, oh yeah, I could definitely do this better. And that wasn't that expensive either, I don't think, for the prototype one. It was like 40
No.
bucks or
Yeah, I
something.
think we're selling it for like, I think it's like 30 or $40. And
Yeah, like
but it's
that's
3D
no
printed,
brainer.
okay? So it's not.
Oh boy.
It's three, but here's the thing. We promise that if you buy the prototype, when we get them into production, which we'd like to do probably in the next 12 months, that we'll send you a production version as well.
Woo!
So
That's so worth. I mean, the time it would save,
yeah.
especially as somebody who only has one dog that's going to do this, versus
Hmm.
like if I had 2 or 3 or 4 dogs, like this is a no brainer,
Makes a
right?
lot more
Like
sense. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that one dog's like, well, this might take me 20 minutes. Maybe I get good, and it takes like five
Yeah.
minutes or so to set up. Um, but yeah, so I totally get it. And for the niche of not just you mentioned like, oh, the pet industry, which I'm surprised they didn't roast you on, unless they did and they cut it. When you were like, oh yeah, it's $1 billion industry. It's like, well,
Yeah.
yeah, of course,
Yeah.
pets is
So
a
they
billion dollar
they
industry, but
didn't
like,
roast me on that, but the crazy thing is like I didn't. So that's not even I have this whole thing where like I boil it down, and I kind of like somebody else jumped in, and it's crazy in there. You have like a
mhm.
question after question, and you don't get to really like finish your whole thought. So it's funny because what they show there was really organic. Like I say that, and then they see, and then it moves on. And my favorite thing is I boil that down, because as a part of that, it's like, yeah, but most of that's spent on food and veterinary, 100%. So when you boil it down, though, 25 million pet owners, specifically dog owners, admit to celebrating their dog's birthday every year. And that's SwiftPaws target market. If you're throwing your dog a birthday party, like, you're probably our target customer. That's right there. But I didn't get there. I didn't get to tell them that. And that's one of my regrets, was I didn't get to tell them
Oh
that.
no, and speaking of that, so the other question I had was about the pro version, because in the beginning you talked about a pro version, but like that's not on your website, at least that I could find. Is
Yeah.
there swiftpawspro.com or?
Yeah, you make a good point. So the ProGrade version, you can find information on the website. We don't sell it direct. You can't like order it directly from the website. And the
Okay.
reasoning behind that is that the professional grade market for this, oftentimes, even if somebody had the budget and wanted to buy it, you've got to be so much more educated about the product. The biggest safety feature with a professional grade lure coursing machine is the operator. And I firmly
Mm.
believe that unless you have knowledge, or are gaining the knowledge, or are already using professional grade equipment, you probably need to go and do research and spend time educating yourself and getting training before you go in and buy what is like a Lamborghini. I don't know. I'm not a car person, but if you're going to buy like a race ready something, you should probably have been in the driver's seat a couple of times. So we do that intentionally. I want to, right now, I personally talk with everybody who is interested in professional grade equipment. I make sure I know what their needs are, what their experience level is. And now that we have a SwiftPaws Home Plus version, most of your doggy daycares, independent dog trainers, those type of pet industry professionals can make great use of the Home Plus, which has a ton of built-in safety features that with the professional grade piece of equipment, it is so high torque, so powerful. I mean, it can run courses of up to and over 1,000 feet long at speeds of up to 65 miles an hour. That sucker is a beast.
And that's the pro version.
That's the pro version, and for us.
Wow. Okay, I get it now. Okay,
that's entry level for professional lure coursing. So lure coursing is a sport specifically for sight hounds, and traditional lure coursing, they run. I'm saying my machine can do 1,000 feet. They run 1,000 yards. They run 3,000. My machine can't do that, and that's okay. I'm not trying to build a machine to compete with that. What they build, those are amazing pieces of equipment. What my pro grade machine is for is the all breed lure coursing sports. Those are fast cat. That's a 100-yard dash. That's only 300 feet. Then you have to do the return. We're talking, maybe 750 feet of line. Same thing with some of the other all breed sports. So that's my niche, is all breed, because the people who have been doing this has been around since the 70s. The people who have been doing this for that long, they've got it dialed in. They've got those beefy motors, like they know how to run it and the power that they need to run it. But that's overkill for the smaller all breed stuff, which is in turn overkill for your backyard.
No, I mean, the thing that comes to mind is the greyhound racing. Is that still a thing in Florida? I know in Florida it was legal.
No, we voted it out. So Florida as a collective voted to end greyhound racing. So yeah, and that's the thing, is people naturally think of, oh, well, the greyhounds, they're chasing a bunny. And lure coursing as a sport is a similar concept, right? The dogs are chasing after prey. But in the sport of lure coursing, and I am not an expert, one of the things that I would love to do sometime is start to interview people who are subject matter experts in lure coursing myself. So what lure coursing is as a sport, though, is it's a brace or a trio. It's a couple of dogs of the same breed. So it's not just greyhounds. It could be, Afghan hounds or whippets, or there's a bunch of different breeds that are sight hounds, and they will race head to head, and they're pursuing that bunny, but it's not an oval track. It's basically a big long course that makes multiple turns, and there's a judge, and that judge is judging based on a set of criteria, not just who's in the lead, right? There's a whole bunch of criteria, follow and chase, and all of that drive, that which dog actually comes out on top. And that doesn't necessarily mean the first dog in at the finish line. And so with greyhound racing on an oval track, it's very much first, second, third. But with lure coursing, it's more about the dog's desire and determination, and who is going to be the top dog when it comes to effectively what would be hunting. Now, lure coursing they're only chasing after fake prey, right? Originally, this would be going back to when people were going out with their dogs and hunting. But this is a much friendlier way to get that dog's energy and drive out.
Right. No, I mean, I know there was a lot of controversy. It's one of those words I can't say. Gotcha. Yes, you can go outside.
Oh, hi,
Riley. She's right here.
So I knew you had a dog because I watched one of your episodes with another dog product on Shark Tank, and you mentioned that you got a golden retriever. So I'm glad that I got to meet her here. Hi. Oh, she's adorable. Hi, Riley.
There you go. Usually you can't get up on. I don't want you on my lap, but it's okay.
You're making an exception for SwiftPaws. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I don't remember what I was going to say now.
Dog interruptions are the best interruptions. But I heard somebody say, "Can Riley go outside?" So it sounds like, are you going to go outside?
Yeah, it's Ava. Ava, you want to say hi? Say hi.
Hi. I've got my puppy here too. This is Miss Piper. She's sleeping. Oh, not quite. She's napping.
So it's Miss Piper. That's the dog's name. All right, you can go let her out. She wanted to go outside?
Yeah.
All right, go let her out. All right, she was ringing the bell. That's good.
Oh, you have her trained
go let her
to
out.
let you know.
Just stay there.
Call her. All right, go. Or she can just stay here. All right, anyway. Oh goodness, where was I? Okay, so the pro version, yeah. So I mean that makes a lot of sense then to either make it like a
Hmm.
separate thing, or like I said, I couldn't easily find it there, which, um, I mean, you know, because a lot of times I think we throw around the word pro
Yeah.
too much, like thanks to Apple and thanks to like GoPro and all these other
Yeah.
companies that like to throw the word pro around when it's like it's not actually a pro device like at all, like, or what you would maybe think is what should be pro versus like the home, the home device. So
Hmm.
oh, she got, you got a toy for her? There you go.
Oh, there you go.
Uh-oh, careful, she's gonna knock you down, she's gonna knock you
There's
down. All right, come
there's
here,
nothing
just come
like a
here,
bribe.
come here. Yeah, right. um so yeah, so that when you were describing the difference at that level is, yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah, and I don't
So,
necessarily want
oh,
somebody accidentally purchasing one and then it's like way too much for their backyard. So I would rather have the conversation up front and then find the right piece of equipment for them, then have somebody, and it's expensive. I mean, our professional grade kit is like $2,750 right now. So that's way more than our, and that is even so like hardcore lure coursing equipment is like four to
mhm.
seven thousand dollars by the time you put all the pieces parts that you need together to run it. This is not a
And
cheap sport.
obviously, well, yeah, but obviously there's a butt for every seat. So there's people that are going to be like, I have the month the 2000. Why would I not buy the pro one
Yeah.
for the sake of getting the pro? I mean, thinking that it's like a beefier version or a slightly faster version of the home one, and then
Mhm.
because we've been trained to think like, oh, pro just means like it's a little bit faster, it's a little bit this, it's a little bit that, but it's
Yeah.
like, no,
Yeah.
that's
That's the
serious.
plus. That's the plus, and everybody should buy it.
So okay, so digging into the sharks, did you have a shark in mind that you wanted out of the gate to work with?
Yeah, I mean, so I found out who my panel was a couple days before I went out to tape. And so I had researched who was going to be on that whole season, but there were guest sharks and there was a whole, right? So you don't know exactly who you're going to get. Once I learned who my panel was, I thought that there were three most likely sharks, and those sharks were Damon, Lori, and Robert. Just because, I know both Damon and Robert are dog people, thought probably Robert was the most likely. And Lori, of course, I mean, we have IP. This is a product that's like a consumer product, and I wasn't sure if she would be super interested just because it's a slightly higher price point. It is a premium product and it is a niche, and I know that Lori likes stuff that has huge appeal. So I was like, I would absolutely love that, but I thought that those were the three most likely. But my mindset going in was if I could do a deal with any single one of the five of them, they could bring value to the table. And people are like, oh, they have their thoughts and their opinions on, of course, who they think is the best shark or this or that. But the reason they're sitting in those seats is that they have proven their success over pretty much every industry known to man. So I was like, nah, if I can get a deal with any of these sharks that I can say yes to, SwiftPaws is going to be better off.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I could not agree more. I think that it's, and at the end of the day, like I said earlier, like they have to do due diligence, right? Like the deal could change. I mean, I've seen very early on, and I'm supposed to have her on at some point. Actually, I think she lives probably down in your neck of the woods, down in the Florida area now. Her deal fell through because the deal they wanted to, not she, but the shark wanted the deal to change, and a lot of
Mm,
time had passed at that point, and some things had happened, and it's like, yeah, no, we're not doing that,
yeah,
like we're not going
yeah.
down that road. So and we've seen it with other, I think there was another one, and I haven't interviewed this person, but where one of the sharks wanted like they're like, oh yeah, I know I said I would take like 25%, but I actually want like 50, like
Oh,
let's go.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah. So it's like, well, that's the game change, that's different. That's a very
yeah. And
different
and I think
situation.
what comes out in the wash too, and I think this has evolved over time, right? In the earlier years of the show, I think it was different than it is today. But at this point, the sharks are so like they're so well versed. Like they've done this so many times at this point that they know. So I think that once you go through due diligence, like they might look at something and say, okay, this doesn't make sense anymore, or this does make sense. And I've I've had when you finally get to tell people. So when I had that 3 weeks notice and I finally got to tell the world that we were going to be airing on Shark Tank, everybody I know who knows somebody else who had been on Shark Tank was like, let me connect you. So that was pretty cool. I
Oh,
actually
I
got to
love
talk with
that.
it's really awesome. There's like a whole community. So, people that I know were like, oh, I have a friend who went on Shark Tank in season 6. And so I got to talk with a number of people who'd been on the show. And you're right, those experiences vary. Some did the exact deal they got on the show. Some didn't get a deal, but ended up raising like on a better valuation outside of Shark Tank after airing. And some, either the deal didn't go through, it fell through, or it just changed dramatically. And that was either because the entrepreneur asked for it or the shark asked for it. So it is as varied as there are people and businesses in the world. There are varied deals.
100%. So, speaking of deals, I was cheering so loudly when Lori decided to offer her golden ticket. But before we get to like that part of it, the groans, is there an extended cut of that we didn't get to see? Because it seems so petty and dumb. Like, I mean, when you see I haven't shown you the thumbnail yet, but when you see it,
Yeah.
it's Mark Cuban in his chair looking
Oh,
up
going,
saying, "Oh Lord." I don't know if he says "Oh Lord" or "Oh Lori." I wrote "Oh Lord," but
okay.
because I can't,
I don't
can't
remember.
really tell in the audio. But I went back like 3 times, like, listen, I can't tell, even with headphones on. So, but were those like, was that real? Were they really groaning?
That's a really good question. So in my watching of the previous season, I had seen Lori offer somebody else the golden ticket, and a similar reaction, right? The other sharks are like, oh, and I think somebody was like, I've got a magic pen that you can sign. Like, they're all. I think the purpose there is, again, this is kind of my hunch, is that Lori wants to bring like an element of every entrepreneur. Okay, so right, other shows, AGT, whatever, they all want the golden buzzer, the golden this, and so I think Lori's point is she wants to bring an element of every entrepreneur walking into that tank wants her golden ticket. And it kind of brings like an element of being special. Now, I think the other sharks are probably a little jealous that they didn't think of this little token, because I'm not right? Like, yeah, the whole envy thing there, not cute. But I don't think it's a Shark Tank thing, because the other sharks don't have that element. It's Lori's golden ticket. And she's really running with it. And for me, it's like the fact that when she pulled it out, I should have probably been smiling, but instead I was like mouth agape, total shock. I didn't for a second. When I saw that, I think it was like Super Cubes that I saw get the golden ticket. And I was like,
Oh yeah.
I was like,
I
man,
think
that's
so.
so cool, man. That exists. Like, whoa, that's awesome. And I was like, that'll never happen. I just dismissed it completely. I was like, there's no way. So when she starts talking to me, honestly, she was being so sweet, and Mark had just been so sweet. And then he was like, I'm out. So I was like, oh God, Lori's going out.
She's
And
always sweet before she goes out. That's
she was
because
just
she's
so
so
kind.
nice. She's
And
always yeah. I guess I
truly,
got.
truly is so nice. I don't know how. I don't know how you can obviously go through so much in business and still be such a kind-hearted person, but she is truly. So she pulls out the golden ticket, and I'm just like jaw on the floor, like not pretty, like, oh my God, is this happening? And then like some of my friends have been like, girl, you didn't negotiate. I was like, I didn't have to negotiate. I was like, it was that at that point. So what they didn't show as much of was Robert was really trying to come up with making me an offer. They show him kind of considering it, but he was like trying to work out the math, and what if I came in at the same valuation of a previous round, and what would it have to be? And, I think he was really trying to make me an offer. And then what they do show, and I mean, the trajectory, the timeline that they show on the show is accurate. The sharks went out in the right order. The questions were asked in the right order. So what they do show is then, like, I think Lori kind of jumps in and cuts him off. And then and I think he probably thought she was going out too, because she was just so flattering. And then she pulled out the golden ticket, and then I start sobbing, and they gave me such a flattering edit. I cried way more than they showed on TV. Like I was losing it. And so then I remembered Pretzel's paw. We had put that unit there because I wanted to share Pretzel's paw prints on the machine, and I'd forgotten it. And then when Lori pulls out her golden ticket, I remembered it. And so then the emotions were so high.
And oh man, so and look, when you think of dogs, I immediately think of Robert. He's dropped dogs. He loves the dogs. He sat there with people's dogs for the whole time and then
Yes.
didn't invest in
And he has a Malinois. Like he has the breed of dog that if any breed is higher energy, I don't know one. So like he is my prime customer right there.
Yeah,
High energy dog.
100%.
I know he's got like twins. I know he's got kids. So he's got no time. He is my perfect customer and he gets it. So I was like, Robert is gonna get the need for SwiftPaws. And he did. He did get it.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's probably gonna, if he's not already a customer, I'm sure he will be a customer.
I'm gonna have to go back and like search through he probably just ordered on Amazon, so I don't know.
Oh yeah. Oh man, yeah. When she did the golden ticket, I was like, man, that is so awesome. It's like, this lady Megan, she reached out to me. She told me that she used my show as a reference point to help train her to go into the tank. And here she is. She's getting the gold ticket. I was like, I told Melissa, I was like, Melissa, this happened. She's like, wow. She's like, that is so incredible. That is so wonderful.
It's the super golden ticket.
Yes. Ding, 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 ding. It really, that is so awesome and so special, especially because, obviously your numbers, you kind of alluded this, or not alluded, but you kind of pushed the sales conversation so you could give all the explanation and paint the whole picture of it. And really, like, look, when the Sharks are there, they want the sales, right? That's, anything could be a potato parcel is a thing, right? And because it has sales and got that deal. So when you think about like where they're at, usually it's what are the sales, because it can prove me wrong in the process. And just phenomenal coming through with the story, with the explanation, with everything, and with a product that's unique to home ownership, or to homeowner, the home user, I don't know, whatever, home consumer, whatever you want to call it, it's just awesome. It's just awesome to see. And I'm so I was just cheering and so like, oh God, it's so great. So all right, so all that happens, you cry all the tears. Let's go after you leave Shark Tank, you walk out, walk down the hallway. What's going through your mind, and when you get back to to Florida,
to reality,
to reality.
So after I left the tank, and so I had, obviously Piper was a rock star and she ran it brilliantly, and then the Sharks ran it with her. And right before I went on, I realized that she was going to be exhausted. Like, this is truly 90 seconds of running your heart out and you're tired and you need some water. And so I was like, she's going to need a break, and I'm going to be standing there having to answer questions, and that's not fair to her. So I should have thought further ahead, but it was when I was in there doing the 5-minute walkthrough that I was like, oh no, she's going to need some downtime. So and this is where, like, the show, the producers, the whole team, like, they're in your corner. They want to support if they possibly can. So I asked one, I was like, hey, is there anybody who can hold her and get her some water and like take her for a walk, give her a break after she does the demo? And so like 2 minutes before I had to run on stage, they found somebody for me. And so you'll see me, I was like, I think Piper deserves some water. And then the Sharks were like, yeah. I turned around, I sprint out of the tank, I hand Piper off, and then I run back in to answer questions. And so afterwards, when I go out of the tank and, you walk down the hallway, you turn the corner, and there's that room where they like do the exit interview. And I turn the corner and I see the person holding Piper, and Piper's like pulling on the leash. And in my brain, I'm like, oh no, she thinks that Piper wants to run to me, and she doesn't. She wants to run back out there and play with her toy again. So in slow motion in my brain, like time slows down like a movie, and she lets go of the leash, and I'm like, no. So like I know that this is coming, and I know Piper is going to try to dodge me. She knows I'm going to try to catch her, and she's going to try to dodge me. So I stop in the corner where the hallway is turning into this egg, and I bend down and I spread my arms wide, and I'm like, which way is she gonna duck? So as she comes trying to hurdle, I like grab her in a hug, and I'm like, Piper, I got you. Because the last thing I wanted was for my dog to go busting back out there. Look at her. She has no shame. None whatsoever.
No.
She's like, I would do it again in a
not at all.
heartbeat. So the last thing I wanted to do was have to like shamefully go back out and like collect my dog. So I got Piper, and you know, at that point, I just couldn't stop crying. It was so emotional. Your adrenaline is so high that you're just like, oh my God, like, did this just happen? Did I really get the golden ticket? And I didn't get to see after I left and I was doing that. They're like asking you questions and how do you feel? All of a sudden, like the set kind of like came alive. There was like this different energy and like people are laughing. I'm like, what's going on? So then one of the people tell me, they say, you know, they like tied some money to it, and Mr. Wonderful was chasing it around, and I was like, no way, that did not happen. And then they showed it. I was like, oh my God, my life is complete. I got to see him chase around. Had like a dollar bill on the product. That was amazing.
Yes, a $20 bill. I mean, that's what I used for my thumbnail for the preview video. Was him chasing a $20 bill, which I was surprised that any of them actually had any paper money.
Yeah, like who pulled out a 20? You know, I want to know that.
somebody on the set, like on set, had it probably. I mean, maybe they do. I know it's like. I know my dad's always about that, like, oh, you know, how much cash do you have on you, like, blah blah blah, and I'm like, I don't know, like, maybe $20 any time at all. And he's like, no, you gotta have more than that.
No, like cash isn't so much a thing anymore. Like you guys have a credit card on you, and that's all. I mean, sometimes even I just have my phone and I've got like Venmo or whatever.
Yeah, I got Apple Pay, like, yeah, just. You know, I could literally, once Jersey changes the law and I can get my license on in Apple, the Apple Wallet, I literally won't need to have my wallet at all. Yeah. Like I could literally just leave the house with my watch and I'd be all right.
You'd be set. Well, and the funny thing is, you know, I think they make Kevin out to be the bad guy, but he's actually super kind. And so like when I talked about Pretzel, of course, like they put Pretzel's picture on the screen and I lose it and I'm crying and I'm trying to pull myself back together. And this guy right here, he throws me that like life vest. He's like, hey. He's like, how old was he? I'm like, oh, he's 14 and a half. He's like, wow, he lived a long life. And then he just kept like pulling me back in with questions and he got me talking again. So even though he went out and even though I think he's kind of like the bad guy on the show, like kudos to him. But I will say that when Lori pulls out her golden ticket, Kevin says, I hope a dog eats that ticket. And so we're working with a local dog treat baker, and she's going to make golden ticket dog treats, and Kevin's going to get his wish.
I love it. That's I'm
going to have to like mail a little package to his office and be like, you know, you're welcome. Your dream can come true.
Yeah, that's cute. I like that idea. I'm sure he will appreciate. I mean, if you watch Kevin on YouTube, because he of them, he is the most active on YouTube,
very active,
by a mile. Yeah. And you know, I mean, he definitely is a lot nicer. I think a lot more introspective than people would generally give him credit for, especially if they just watch like the hot takes. Yeah. From Shark Tank. So, and look, and the meanness thing, look, it is a TV show and he's not adverse to playing the role of it. He's also probably the only shark that's been on almost every single episode of the show. Yeah. There's only one that I can think of where Mark sat in his chair, in season 6, I think.
I wouldn't have even seen it. Everything I've seen, he's been on it. And but even when he's Yeah, not that he can't be a little bit digging, but it's kind of also like tongue in cheek. And when he's like, "Oh, you're dead to me," right? Like some of that too is it's a little bit tongue in cheek, and he's not. I don't think he's mean for the sake of being mean.
No, no. I mean, it's coming from a place of he wants people to be successful at all cost, and that sometimes means
Yeah,
taking it out behind the barn,
yeah,
and old Yeller there. It's dog references. Anyway,
yeah.
so all right, so you get back, and you were saying in the beginning of this interview about how you were getting nervous because you started seeing other people that you had been on the show. Walk me through like what's because it's been what 8 months now or so
It's been a long
since you
time.
recorded. Like
Yeah.
what's been going on since that time?
So post airing, we were coming into the holiday season, and for SwiftPaws, I mean, this is something true too. Like this product, this company, it's grown very organically. So the first 1,000 that we made of the home product, we were 6, 7 years into the company before we even launched the home product. And those first 1,000, like you're looking at the girl who was hand soldering wiring harnesses to go into them. And I am not a tech, like I'm not an engineer. I'm not, and I learned it to do it for this product. And so you take something like that, and we were talking earlier about how customers using the product and you using the product. Those for the first remotes had an on-off switch instead of a button, and the switch, I mean, to me it makes sense that you hold the remote like this and the switch
Mhm.
up is on and down is off. But customers got confused. There was no light telling you when it was on or off, and they literally, we had customers putting a piece of tape with an arrow up to know which direction, and those charged. You had to like charge it with a little micro USB cable. So from feedback from those first 1,000 customers, we literally completely overhauled the remote, and we completely overhauled the circuit boards for both. And it's that kind of experience. So now, no on off switch, it's a button. When you poke it, there's a green light that turns on, and you can visually see and hear, because we have customers who maybe they don't hear so well, but they can see, and it
Mm.
vibrates in your hand. So like talk about accessibility and who can use the product, and making it easy for a kid and an older person, like equally the same. So that type of stuff is important, and we've continued that. So since airing, so we had to come into the holiday season, we had also just launched the plus version. So SwiftPaws, we had launched the home version, we shipped the first ones in 2019, and then we knew that we needed something in between, because that pro version, those people who compete in those all breed sports, they want a way to practice at home. And the original home kit version is like not quite, like it'll do half the length that they need for a practice course. So we went back to the drawing board. We made a plus version. Literally, it's like it can do more than twice the length. It's faster, like all the stuff, right? So that we were shipping in time for the holidays for the first time ever. We had like 500 or so to ship out. So we were cranking during the holidays. Like it was, we had like my whole family, my boyfriend and his whole family in the warehouse. We're all packing. My employees are in there. It was a madhouse. So then we come through the holidays, and immediately I am trying to think about, okay, the timing is if we air, it's going to be before the season ends in May. And I didn't think I was going to air before the holidays, just because we were the last day of taping. I knew they were already editing. It started in October. Really unlikely that they would try to put me in before that. That would be an editing miracle, right? So my
Yeah.
my best guess was sometime after the holidays, after the new year, but before the season ends. So I wanted to prepare. So I was trying to, I mean, talk about shortages and supply chain. Like some of my electronic components are like 60-week or better lead times. So I was paying for deposits on increased inventory. Gosh, as early as last fall, or even a little before then. So I was trying to ramp up to make sure that I had as much inventory as I could handle, but not so much that if we somehow didn't air, that it was going to crush us. So I mean, that's a hard balance. I mean, in a small business, like cash flow is insane, and with a hardware product like we have, one that we don't just buy it completely made. We bring in our materials. Some of them are from overseas, some of them are from the US. Then we do all of the assembly here in my hometown, and that's a big chunk of the cost too. So as we get more efficient, and as we can, I want to continue to engage my community as much as I can, but we also have to become more efficient. So working that out, I was working that out. So it is like you are either, and at the end of the holidays, man, you're either cash poor and inventory heavy, or you are sitting on a bunch of cash after the holidays and you have no inventory. And I couldn't afford to be either. So I had to really get creative. I have some great suppliers that I work with, and you're trying to leverage everything that you can. So couple weeks before airing, actually 1 week before we got notice, there were a few things I was trying to get in place as quickly as I could, hoping that they would be done in time. So we changed our website over. We'd been a WordPress WooCommerce website since 2013, right? Like before, like Shopify existed then, but it wasn't the gold standard.
Yeah.
So we actually transitioned the website to Shopify, which was, I mean, that was the best move we could have done, because when we aired, like our website didn't crash. We were able to like have a bunch of stuff built in. Our, customer support system integrates seamlessly. And that was huge. And so that, and then just preparing with the inventory. So at this point, I mean, I really thought we had gotten away with it. Like I thought that we aired, we went over that weekend, right? And then we are now sold out of inventory until mid-May. So we we didn't quite make it. But we're gonna be okay, and we'll be shipping again in a couple of weeks. And we're currently just waiting on more of those circuit boards. They come from like we get those done like a walking distance from our warehouse is where they actually get put onto the boards, and that's where our board house is. So yeah, shout out to them, JCon. Like the suppliers that I work with, seriously though, it is not just your internal team. It's who you work with, the relationships that you have, and every single piece of that puzzle has gotten SwiftPaws to where it is today. Like people think like, okay, literally, I am just the crazy dog girl. I love dogs. I intimately know my product, but if you asked me about engineering or software or this or that for literally anything else on the planet, I don't have that expertise. But I do have people that I've been working with for years who can help me get to that next step, and that's huge.
And that is huge, and it's huge to recognize that, right? That you're not doing this alone. That this is very much a team effort, and being able to get any kind of silicon-based product right now is huge, right? To be able to get that through the chip shortage that we have been, grappling with
Yes.
for what, 16 months now, 18 months now.
Yeah, it's been well, and it's been closer to 2 years, because on the manufacturing side of things, that started to get tight and the lead time started to get longer, like pretty much when COVID hit. And it was like at that point it was kind of like speculative, and people were like, "Oh, things are going to get a little crazy," and the shipping got delayed. We had shipping delays in early 2020 because it was already affecting, Asia. So that has already been prolonged, and now you're seeing the silicone stuff and all of the rest of that hit. So it is a weird time to be in business. That's for sure.
That it is. No, that is phenomenal. So, are you currently taking pre-orders for the next shipment, I hope?
Yeah, we are. So, and
I
it's
didn't
not so
actually
much
click on the one to be able to pre-order it.
That's okay. It's not so much a next shipment. So again, like people think like, oh, so you order SwiftPaws, it comes to you in a box. Like, no, we have every single piece and part for our next round in our warehouse, and we're literally just waiting on those circuit boards, and those guys are going to get into production. So we're there, we've got it, and that's always difficult too. Like we try to be transparent. You see those companies who do a pre-order and then they don't tell you that hasn't even gotten on a ship yet. So then you get that next email and it says, okay, the ship's been delayed. Then you're like, oh, it's not in America yet. Then they tell you, oh, we're having delays at the port. So I think the like US consumer has wisened up a little bit. Like, I don't think the US consumer understood all the pieces, parts that had to come together to bring a product in from overseas. And I think there's a good push. I mean, I support this. There's a push now to onshore a lot that we've offshored over the years. So for SwiftPaws, what that means for me, I already make a premium product. I am trying to bring my pricing down. But if I can, as much as I can, I will continue to do that in the US. And I think that what's important there is now with the cost of shipping, it's even more competitive. Like the pricing is not as different as it once was.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had back in December, November, December, they were, we had was it Target and Walmart like chartering their own ships
Yes.
to go, right?
Literally,
Just
like, yes, just so that they could get product over here. And
yep.
I was, so two of the things, two of the big components. Hey, maybe you've got some listeners out there who are supply chain experts. Two components that I have never been able to source here in the US are our motor. We use a very small brushed DC motor. It's in like an RC type motor, pretty common. It's used in power tools. It's used, but that motor, like there are companies in the US that make motors, but they're making brushless like drone motors, 90 to $100 motors. My motor is like sub $4. So for those companies, it doesn't make sense for them to even have the equipment to do the windings for my motors. There used to be stuff in North America, Mexico, but literally I got in touch with one plant and they had recently shipped, that was in 2019, they had shipped their equipment over to China. So there's just, and you hear that all the time probably. There are certain things that we just don't do here in the US anymore. And the other thing is the batteries. I know US companies that will make the packs, but I'm not aware of anybody making the actual like lipo cells, like the actual. And that is, again, if they're doing it, if it's a battery company, if they're in the US, it's for much higher grade. And because the reward is greater, you have to. But we'll see. I mean, this is going to change the landscape of the world and how the world does business. But until then, I have been fortunate to have been doing this for a long time, so I have good supplier relationships. So even that which I do need to bring in from overseas, like thankfully they've got my back. They tell me, hey, look, this is going to be this long, or please plan ahead for this many months. And I rely on that information.
That is such a key thing. It came up as a question. Somebody, I don't know, a few weeks back, I was doing a Business Geeks. I think it was just me and Sam, and somebody asked about that, like, how do you find the right vendors? And it's like, you got to build the relationships. It's all. I mean, I literally spent, I don't know, almost 3 hours talking to one of our, just, having a face-to-face conversation the other day with one of our salespeople that represents for a bunch of vendors. And I
Okay.
mean, we've known each other. He's known me since I was born. Like he's been around, right? So, but just strengthening that relationship and renewing that relationship over and over and over again. It's so much about relationships. In fact, somebody was just asking me like 4 days ago, about their in person, or their virtual event, and they're like, we're trying to get all these people to come and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, well, how many people did you reach out to one-on-one? And I was like, they were like all like hundreds. And I was like, but how many of those people did you have a conversation with?
Yeah.
Did you just reach out like, I blasting
Like an
them
email
a
or
message? Yeah,
yeah.
like, hey, I'm doing this event. You should totally come. And then, no, you got like, everybody wants to be the person that says, I tweeted, 6 characters and changed the world, right? All of it,
Mhm.
like everything, I tweeted, 6 words, and now all of a sudden we have all these people coming to our event, and we have all these
Yeah.
relationships built. Like, you're not that person, in most likely. So you got to go and build brick by brick, relationship by relationship, and build it with those people, and then they will feel, to want to come to your event, or want to
Yeah.
be, tell you that information. Like, hey, look, I know that we're not really. Oh, here's a great example. When back in like 2008, when the steel prices were going, through the roof,
Oh, right.
one of our vendors, the president called my dad and was like, he was on the jet to China because, again, relationships,
Yeah.
was on both ends. Him going to China to work with his people, and him calling my dad from the jet on his way to China to talk to, like, look, we're gonna have a huge price increase coming here,
Mhm.
blah 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 blah. And he didn't have to do any of that. Like, they had the systems in place. The company was a massively big company, and it
Right.
was
Right.
a daughter company of the bigger mothership company, right? So it was not even like, it didn't even really matter, but the relationships is what matters, because it's
Yes.
all just people. And so what you're saying about having those relationships with people to, like, actually have realistic, this is when we should realistically have this, and have those conversations, and get to know the people, maybe about their kids, or this, that, and the third thing that they, then that's in their background. and all that. Like that's the value,
And to be
yeah,
genuinely
so
interested. I mean, look, you have to bring it back.
yes.
It's you can't yeah, you can't fake it, right? So me again, crazy dog person, right? So one of my favorite suppliers is a German company, but the German company has a plastics plant in Bosnia. So our plastics actually come from Bosnia. And so I was talking with
Mm,
my point of contact there, and we were talking about SwiftPaws. This is like probably in late 2018 because for our first round in 2019. And she mentioned that they had a dog shelter. So out of that first batch, I literally shipped them a SwiftPaws. We just talk about difficult, like having to ship it over as a sample and all this stuff. And we don't ship internationally, but I sent them one for their local dog shelter in Bosnia. And they were like, when we've been on the phone a couple times, and she was just so thankful for that. And that's, yeah, like, okay, maybe you can't connect on a level like that. Like that was just awesome, and awesome for me to be able to do that. But you can find a way to connect with any of, and it's just a matter of asking and talking and finding those common threads.
yeah, and I mean, I've said it here on the channel many a times, like how valuable. And now I know you live in Florida, so like Wawa is not lost on you, I'd
No,
imagine.
not at
Right.
all.
So, how many like tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars have been made because of a breakfast sandwich,
Yeah.
right? Or because because you happen to see somebody that and you're like, let me buy your breakfast or whatever, and because you're just there, right?
Hmm.
Little things like that can go such a long way. Donating local baseball team, local soccer team, whatever. Those things, because it's like you're actually investing into that person's life, and to make it easier, make it better, that kind of thing. And then those relationships can be built over years and years, decades upon
Hmm.
decades.
And you don't
Um,
know what resources your immediate resources have as well. I can't tell you how many times I've needed something. I've kind of like mentioned it across some of my other, and it's like it might not even be related to how we're connected, and they're like, oh, like have you thought of this, or I know this person, and that's crazy. Like one of my favorite resources locally, and again, like Melbourne, Florida, Malabar, Florida, where I live, in Melbourne, where Groundswell is, has so many more resources than you could ever imagine in the world. And I think people go too far away from home. They think if I want a good engineering firm, I got to go and I got to look in a big city. Or if but start in your backyard. And when you find
yeah.
a resource in your backyard, you can go there, and you don't have to buy a plane ticket to go. And that's important. So we partner with a place called Brevard Achievement Center, and they do the assembly on all of our pulleys. Because again, 3 or 5 pulleys for every kit. So that would be a lot to do in my little warehouse. And they provide adults with disabilities both training and work experience. So not only do they put out the most consistent product we have ever seen, but the model that they have allows them to give us rates that are competitive with any contract manufacturer I've ever spoken with. And that relationship, to me, like we're having conversations about how we can work together more. And to have a partner like that in your community, even as you grow, is just that is how a company, in my opinion, that's how SwiftPaws will succeed, is from the people and the resources and the customers that we take care of.
100%. Putting a face to a name is so powerful, and doing it locally. I'm reminded of Diaper Dust. She posted the other day. She flew across the country, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, we don't have the bottles." She's like, "Well, then what am I doing here?
Oh my
Like, why
gosh.
didn't you tell me this before I got on a plane to come, across the country, pretty much, to be here? Things
Yeah.
like that." And I'm always saying that because she posted that publicly on Facebook. So
Hmm.
but things like that happen, and that's where again, it goes back to the relationships, and getting to know the people, and building, when you go to conferences and stuff like that, like it's not about going to the booths, right? It's also about going out to dinner, and who you're
Yeah.
going out to dinner with. Chewing a blanket. Oh, that's
Oh
wonderful.
no.
Please tell her
Your
to stop. No, she stopped. Okay.
your dog
So
your dog needs a SwiftPaws.
yeah, clearly she needs something to get her to not be chewing a blanket.
but
Um,
but that is
good.
what it's about, and sometimes it's the dinner that is more meaningful and more productive than the 8 hours on the trade show floor.
Yeah, ding ding,
Mhm.
110%. So, yeah, I mean, so congratulations. I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to ask, but I can't. I, I, we went so far
We-
down the vendor relationship rabbit hole that I don't recall at this
well, let
point.
me
But
let me share with you kind of like where we go from here, because I think for me that's like I'm always trying to think into the future. Hey,
mhm.
hello. Oh no, Piper hears me saying hello and she thinks it's somebody here.
Oh,
Look, she's gonna go look out the window to see who I said hi
oh,
to. Dogs are so intuitive. Like they know things like that. She's heard me say hello 100 times, so she thinks there's probably somebody here, right? They're just incredible
mhm,
beings. So where SwiftPaws goes from here is we've been doing this really organically for a long time. I didn't set out to, start. I wasn't like, I have to think of a problem to solve because I want to be the CEO of a startup. Like that was not my intention. So, but at this point, I've been doing it for 10 years. This is our 10th anniversary of SwiftPaws in July, actually. And
woo,
yeah, thank you. It's been a great 10 years, and I wouldn't mind doing it for another 10 years. And I think that's the thing too. I think people think that they want that overnight success, and they don't mind putting in hard work, but if they don't start getting that return, there's got to be something in it for you. I personally believe you have to want to do something for more than just the promise of a financial reward for you to, in those low moments, because gosh, they are low, for you to just like keep pushing forward. So for me, I am a little bit like I'm stubborn. I don't like letting things go. I am a hard worker, and I believe in what I'm doing. And I'm crazy enough that I want to, this to be in the hands of as many people as I can put it in. So we have opportunity now. SwiftPaws has no better chance than right now to like realize that dream. And for me, that dream is there's not enough people talking about the mental and physical side of pet ownership. Like we give them good nutrition, we take them to the vet, we want to be good dog owners. I'll take my dog to the vet before I'll go to the doctor, right? I'm that type of pet parent. But I also think that it's important for them to get mental and physical enrichment every single day. And yeah, you got to take your dog for a walk or have a dog walker or take them to the doggy daycare. But I think that the conversation is lost a little bit, and we can bring that back to the forefront. You don't have to have my hero product, right? You could just, if you take your dog for the same walk every day, go out the front door and walk it backwards. Literally start at the end and go in the reverse. And you'd be amazed at how much different it is for your dog to take the walk just a different way. Same walk, different direction. And that's the thing. As humans, we like diversity. We like trying new things. We need that in our lives, and they do too. So for SwiftPaws, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working on new product development. I've got some ideas, same theme, anything to get your dog's brains and bodies active. We're going to be working on scaling up, improving our efficiency, continuing to take as good of care of our customers as we possibly can. We have the luxury while we're small still, because we are still small
mm.
in the scheme of things, to really pay attention and put the care in where I think it's needed most. And I don't know, the next like 24 to 36 months are going to be really exciting, because now, because of Shark Tank and because of the exposure and because of being able to work with Lori and her team. I mean, she texted me the day after Shark Tank. I'm like, what? Lori is texting me? Like it's incredible to be able to tap into resources like that. And from a bit of a selfish standpoint, I get to learn so much from these mentors and these other people that I work with, that I think I have a better chance now, more so than ever, to get SwiftPaws into that place where it's that go-to brand for this type of enrichment for pets.
Well, that ding ding. It's so. I mean, like it's so awesome that you recognize the fact that you have an opportunity to, pivot as much as you do, and being small is not a detriment. I mean, obviously, it comes with its own challenges, especially
Mhm.
when it comes to like funding and things like that. But
Yep.
like, you got that pretty covered
We're getting
now.
there. We really are.
Yeah. And I love the mental aspect of the pet, because of thinking back to how you're like, well, the dog needs to be able to catch the thing. Oh, I remember the thing I was going to pick up on. Well, I don't know if I said this in the preview video, but I did say it in the reaction video about how my concern would be that the dog would trip over the wire, not trip,
Yeah.
but like trip and rip the
Right.
wire or break
Right.
the wire. And it didn't seem to happen when Piper was doing it. So
Really
I
common
guess it's not a
question,
big
but
deal.
the whole thing is flexible and it moves. And I mean, it's string, it's not wire, right? So again, safety is number one. So if your dog runs into the string, it moves out of the way. And then once they're clear, it goes back into place. It's the whole thing is, and it doesn't run with very much tension. It's not like a guitar string, right? Like it's a flexible, movable thing. And so it has that 90-second play session. After 90 seconds, the remote turns off to remind you to give your dog a break and get them some water, right? It has a stall feature. If your dog steps on the line, it stops the motor. If they grab the flag, if your toddler steps on the line, it stops. So that's super important for me. It has to, yeah, it has to be safe for everybody to put in their backyards. And then at the end of the day, we have a lot of education. The first thing that you get when you open up SwiftPaws is like, hey, number 1, 2, 3, ready, set, play. And ready is like, watch a couple of 2-minute long videos, read the safety information, try it out first, and then bring your dog out to play. Because this isn't, it's not like a set it and forget it type of thing. It is an investment, but so is a dog. So that's how I feel about it.
It is. It is. Yeah, and we would love to have Lori here on the show. You ever get a chance to hey,
oh
Lori,
my God, that would
be
amazing. And not only that, but Lori, it was so cool. She FaceTimed, we did a watch party and she FaceTimed me. I'll send you the highlight video, but she FaceTimed the whole room of people, and she pops on the screen and they're saying hi to her, and she's in a backwards ball cap. She's just casual, hey guys, it was so special. So yeah, I will absolutely send them the link to this because they know too. You have to get any PR and stuff approved as well. And I think that what you're doing does actually bring value to something like Shark Tank, and it helps kind of connect people. You don't just watch the show, right? You get your own value out of that, but helps connect people to the reality that is behind the show too. Because this is real companies, real lives, real people, and we're really trying to make it work.
And you know what? And that's why I know I've caught flack in the comments before about oh, Joe, you love everybody, or you try to be too positive or whatever. And it's yeah, because these are real people. They're not going on as a character, This isn't Jimmy Kimmel, going on as with horse pants, right? This is probably closest to reality TV being reality that you can find, period, out there. And I think that's so powerful in a time where, look, going back to even the late 90s with the Real World and stuff, where they very clearly were editing things to tell a story. The story tells itself, and they've obviously have the formula down to be able to do it. And so I would, I would love to have her come on the show. I'd love to have any of the sharks come on the show. We've reached out to one, and I have a couple of feelers out to people that I know that either have deals with certain sharks or friends with certain sharks. So, well, it'll happen when it happens. I'm not basing my whole thing, but I do want to point out that what you said about, when you're doing this and you're not making any money, look, you clearly had checked me out pretty well here, because before we got on the call, you were like, oh, you wrote books and you've done all these podcast interviews and things like that. There was a lot of time where I wasn't making any money doing any of that stuff. I was getting a couple clients here and there, but it wasn't really grown to the level that it's growing now. They say it takes 7 to 10 years to be an overnight success. Well, look, I'm in year 8. Okay.
All right. So you're getting there.
We're right. Well, year 8 will be May 20th. So in 1 month, it'll be year 8 of doing this. And I've been creating content since 96 as a kid, writing about video games on a blog when nobody knew what the heck a blog was, or barely even knew what the internet was, So, for me, this is almost a lifetime building towards where I'm at and where we're growing. And I think it's so important for people to learn these things and, these lessons and things. And I'm just so glad that I get to bring and talk about business, because it's something that I'm so dearly passionate to, because I've been around it since I was, literally born, but I've been in it since I was 6, in the warehouse, counting inventory, sweeping floors, doing these things. So, being only 35, which some people say I'm older than that. I promise you I'm not older than 35. I don't want to be old. My hair, on the other hand, that's a different story. But look, that's why you get to lose the hair because you've been working at this stuff
Yeah,
for 30 years already.
yeah.
It's yeah. So I greatly appreciate you coming on, Megan. It's been an absolute pleasure. Please tell everyone where they can get their own SwiftPaws, hopefully by May or in the middle of May.
Sure. Yeah, the absolute best place is just at our website, swiftpaws.com.
Yes, and you absolutely should. And congratulations, by the way, on all of the social media. We know I was blown away, especially on your TikTok following.
Yeah.
There, a phenomenal job bringing repurposing content, which I pointed out in the reaction
Yes.
video. So you're not making two sets of things; you're repurposing what you've already took the time to make. Are you doing that yourself, or is that somebody else handling your social media?
Yeah, I am not a social media wizard. So I have fun fact about me. I spent a year in Germany on a scholarship program after I graduated high school. So I was like 18-year-old Megan in Germany for a year, right? Doing an internship experience. That was an amazing program. My host sister, so the family that I lived with, my host sister ended up getting the same scholarship and came to the US actually in 2019, 2020, and she interned for SwiftPaws. Then COVID happened and she had to go home. But Kimberly has been working with me on my team ever since. And so she is like my content guru. She's amazing. So, yeah, again, relationships, like who would have thought? I was 18 and she was 13 when we met and when I lived with her family for a year. And now, like, literally couldn't imagine life without her on my team. And she's a dog mom too. And like, it's amazing. And so she gets it. She lives and breathes it and she gets it. And so she'll like send me stuff to approve. And I'm like, girl, you're crushing it. Like, I don't need to approve this. You are so far leaps and bounds ahead of even what I could come up with myself. And it is important. And she blew up our TikTok. Like I have her to thank for it. We hadn't even thought about it. And she was like, SwiftPod should have a TikTok. And we currently have more followers than Chewy on TikTok. And I'm like, ooh, yeah.
Woo! That is ding worthy for sure. I mean, in Instagram, 20,000 on
we
Instagram,
just hit
I believe.
20K on Instagram. We got verified on TikTok, so now we're like, come on Instagram, come on Facebook, let's go.
Oh, I love it. That and it's that again. That's just another story. Relationships, and you just never know. There's something that I learned from a young age. It's like you never know. The kid pushing the broom today will be running the shop tomorrow. So
Yes.
just be nice to everybody. Do what you
Yeah.
can for everybody. And just come at from a place of your heart, and you never know. Because there's been examples where it's like, oh, the person pushing the broom is actually the owner who's out there pushing the boat. So you just
Undercover
don't
boss.
know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
Well, we're not so in their case not so undercover, but to you as the outsider walking in as a salesperson, like you don't know who anybody is. So or who they're going to become in maybe just a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. And how you can help that journey, the journey that they're on, without maybe even knowing it, right? Just saying the right thing and being a kind person. Speaking of kindness, totally off topic. Lori, actually, just did you see that? It was like an Instagram reel or something she posted just the other day about the crumpled paper.
I did. And that was actually
Yeah.
audio from a different thing. I saw that.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know. Oh, I thought it was like her kid or something like
no, she says
talking.
audio credit, and I went and I watched the original, and that was like it was amazing, and I think it was really awesome that she like wanted to perpetuate that and share it.
Absolutely. I want to share. I'm going to share that with my kids.
Yeah.
They already do their best to be as kind as possible, sometimes to a fault, but they're working on it.
Yeah. And I mean, I've heard that analogy before, right? Like with a plate, like you break a plate, then you glue it back together, and is it ever quite the same? And so, words and everything, it has so much meaning, and how you treat people has meaning. And that's why, like for us too, like it's so much easier to be like a disgruntled customer if you're typing out an angry email. But even when we get those, we always try to put ourselves in that perspective, right? Like they've just paid $400-$500 for effectively a glorified dog toy, and it comes and, oh my God, the battery doesn't work, right? Like I'd be upset too. So, and we have kind of like this policy where we will unequivocally take care of our customers. And you know, there are going to be people out there who just don't have a good experience. But at the end of the day, I always want somebody to say, look, even if it didn't work for me, I returned it and I got my money back. And that mentality goes with everything. I mean, and those relationships, the guy who does our website and our marketing, he's been with me and he runs his own agency. He's been with me since 2017. And I believe in having the resources that you have and growing as you grow, growing with them. And when it's not a fit anymore, it's a pretty organic thing where like you just kind of grow apart and it makes sense for both parties. Maybe somebody takes on more, right? Those resources, those contract resources, they have their own lives too. And so I've never, at this point, so SwiftPaws will grow, but I've never had to have like a super difficult conversation because it's usually more of a mutual thing. So people are always like, oh, you know, I'm really angry at this person, that person. It's like, well, have you been really honest enough? Like, here's my fears, here's this, here's that. And we've been really fortunate to have good relationships like with anybody who's either an employee or a contract service type of person. And I, maybe to a fault, we're a little transparent, but I think it does more good than it ever does harm.
Yeah, I think the transparency helps a lot. You know, builds that trust that, you know, it takes it takes months and years to build the trust and seconds to lose it because you like didn't say the thing that the truth.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes the truth hurts and it sucks, but you know, the people that you are going to want in your corner are going to understand and appreciate the fact that you told the truth when, you know, it might not have been the right thing to say at the time or the perfect thing to say or the softest thing to say, but it helped. You know, look, we can do something when we know, knowing's half the battle, and it still is to this day. Thank you, GI Joe. Man, all right, well, thank you so much again, Megan. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. You're welcome to come back anytime you want, and I appreciate you watching till the very end. I'll see you in one of these two videos here, which will probably be SwiftPaws, as well as somebody else's video. Take care and go be super.